Summer is the perfect time to explore Portland's inner districts on Biketown e-bikes or scooters. Biketown also recently expanded to Sellwood, so you can now ride from the Steel Bridge to Sellwood Bridge along our beautiful waterfront with access to the best river swimming spots. All you gotta do is pick out a bike and use the Biketown or Lyft app to scan its QR code. Then you hop on and you start your ride. Plus, new riders can use CityCast 25 for a free unlock. Just don't forget your helmet.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Earlier this week, a new 80-bed overnight shelter opened its doors inside the former St. Stephen's Church downtown. It's part of Mayor Keith Wilson's ambitious plan to add about 1,500 shelter beds across the city by December 1st. And though recent data showed a decrease in crimes around shelters, not everyone is happy when their neighborhood is chosen for a shelter's location. For example, people living in the Pearl District have been very vocal about an overnight shelter set to open in their area later this summer. So today on CityCast Portland, we're talking with Brandy Westerman, Portland's Emergency Humanitarian Operations Director. That means she's overseeing all the city's shelters, from safe rest villages to the new overnight sites. She's here to explain what these shelters are offering and what you can expect if a new overnight shelter opens in your neighborhood. It's Thursday, August 7th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. So this new downtown shelter in Southwest Portland, what services is the city offering there?
Yeah, so the St. Stephen's Shelter, it provides overnight sheltering services for individuals of all genders to sleep during the nighttime hours. It'll open about 9 p.m. and close at 6:30 in the morning. Folks who come into the shelter are going to have the opportunity to be greeted by trained staff. They're going to be registered, be able to kind of get a snack, something to drink, and choose a mat where they're able to get a good night's rest. If they have a well-behaved pet, the pet will be welcome as well.
So it's going to be 80 beds, correct?
Yes, so there'll be 80 beds available. I expect during the first few weeks of operation, we're probably not going to see that many folks coming as the word gets out about the new shelter. I will say as well, we're opening this week another shelter in Southeast Portland at the same time that will offer an additional 100 beds to folks in that area.
Where in Southeast Portland?
That's at about 97th and Powell. It's at the Central Church of the Nazarene.
Oh, so it's a little bit outer Southeast.
That's right.
Okay. So this other one that we're talking about, 80 beds, I heard that there are only 2 bathrooms at this 80-bed shelter. How is that going to work?
Yeah, so there are 2 bathrooms that are on site. If we find that we need additional restrooms, we can often bring in porta potties. I don't think that's going to be required in the beginning. Generally, there's usage in the morning, there's usage in the evening, and there's quite a bit less during the time period when most folks are sleeping. But there's always the room to adapt and adjust as the shelter is up and running and those operations are underway.
And the bathrooms, are they just for bathroom use, or is it also like showers?
Yeah, so there are no showers available on site. Showers will be available to folks at various day centers around town, but at the shelter site, this is primarily for getting a good night's rest, and that's really the focus of the facility.
Gotcha. So these overnight shelters, they're a huge plan of the mayor's vision for ending unsheltered homelessness by the end of the year. But it does mean that these people that are staying there overnight are going to be sent back, out into the community every morning. And most people who don't have places to stay, they don't have anywhere to go. So what can people living in the immediate vicinity of one of these shelters expect to see? Because I know that that's what they're concerned mostly about.
Yeah. We had an open house with a variety of neighbors from around the St. Stephen's just last week and had the opportunity to speak with a number of people who live in the area. Overall, there was broad support expressed for the opening of the shelter, and there were also some concerns, very understandable concerns. The shelters are designed to serve the homeless people who are in those neighborhoods already.
Gotcha.
And so this is bringing people indoors at night. So you have less folks who are sleeping unsheltered in that area. So that's the start. The city is also very much committed to providing priority services to the area for general trash pickup, graffiti abatement, sidewalk and street cleaning to keep that area looking cleaner than it was before. And that's the commitment that the city is making in this case. We also know that there will be challenges that arise in every neighborhood. And so we want to work with neighbors and businesses to address those as they arise. So we're committed to being listeners and hearing directly from community members about what they're experiencing as the shelter goes into place, and then working through those challenges together with the communities. We will have outreach workers from the city outreach team that will be there every single morning. And they're going to engage with folks who don't have a plan for the day to help them make a plan for the day so that they have somewhere to go. In addition, the city is expanding day services in both the east and west sides of our city. We'll be standing up the city's first only day service center that is outdoor in nature, and that will be happening in Old Town. That will provide a place for a shower, a restroom. It's going to be a managed space, and it's going to provide a safe place for people to gain stability and connect with services during the daytime. On the east side, we're partnering with Join to expand the day services that they operate now for increased hours and days. So they'll be operating 7 days a week to provide that service every single day.
Oh, that's cool. What about police patrols in these neighborhoods? Are they going to actively increase?
Yeah, so we're working closely with Central Precinct and the other precincts as required for the specific location of the shelters to address any issues that come up. So the police are very much informed of the opening. They're going to be keeping an eye on that area around new shelters. They're also in regular communication with us. So if we see anything concerning that's happening, PPB will be responding to that. We're ensuring that shelter operators have a good connection with PPB and that there's good communication that's happening in that space. From our experience over this past 7 months, operating the first 2 overnight shelters under Mayor Wilson's plan, we've seen a reduction in crime overall in those areas. And we're going to keep watching that data and see how that evolves as things go on.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that your team has considered the issues, the possible issues that will be affecting these neighborhoods. And you can't solve everything. So I'm wondering what some of the problems you're foreseeing that the shelters will cause, that you're just like, hey, buckle up. This might happen.
Yeah, running shelters is challenging work. So we know that some of the folks who are coming into shelter do have untreated health needs.
We're talking about mental health issues?
It could be mental health, it could be physical health, it could be drug addiction. So we know that those issues are very real, and our shelter operators are working alongside the providers of healthcare to be able to connect people to service where needed. But sometimes issues do arise within those shelters, and that's always something that our operators are going to need to address, and that sometimes it will have an impact on the community. Our commitment is to try to respond to those and address them as quickly as possible when they do happen. It is our expectation that the community and the area around the shelter is going to be better as a result of bringing people indoors for a safe place to sleep.
You know, I think you kind of hit a concern I have, because they're going to be opening up a day center. I live in St. John's, right next to the clinic here, and awesome, great service. But you know, we're a little bottlenecked. And so a lot of the small businesses are concerned that it's going to bring a lot of people with mental health issues, because we already have people being very aggressive that you have to like cross the street to avoid. No one's here taking care of them. They're sometimes half naked. It's very sad. Of course, we want them to have places to go. But if we don't have the support from the city, is that just going to increase? And what about our small businesses? What about our children? Like, we literally have 2 schools right off the main strip, you know? And so I think that is the biggest concern for a lot of people. I think it's the appearance of safety, but also like the physical safety of feeling like a neighborhood rather than a holding place for people with mental health issues.
Yeah, I think our city has been managing through this crisis now for several years, and it's very understandable that business owners, that neighbors are frustrated and want to see some real change. The overnight shelter and the expanded day services, this is an entry point for folks who have these untreated illnesses to be able to connect to the services that can hopefully help them on that pathway towards permanent housing. It's a first step. It's not the whole system. And our hope is that by creating a safe space for everybody in Portland to sleep at night, they'll have that opportunity to start that journey towards healing and permanent housing. So that is always going to be the goal.
Yeah, but what about people who don't think they have a problem? Because there's a lot of people who their health has deteriorated such where they can't even get that first step going. They can't ask for help or they don't want the help. What happens then?
So our focus is on compassionate care. So when we have made the agreement to expand city outreach teams, these are highly trained individuals who know how to engage with people who may have, severe behavioral health issues and really kind of help them, encourage them towards services and that connection to service. I am routinely impressed with the work of outreach workers across our city. However, they haven't always had the tools that they need, such as overnight shelter, to be able to bring somebody in when they do make that connection to a safe place to get a good night's rest. And one thing I have observed in my own life, and certainly in doing this work, is when a person isn't able to get a good rest, it's very hard to think about the next steps and what comes next. So that is one of the fundamental needs that we as humans have, and that's what overnight shelter is going to provide. And there will be challenges. There always will be challenges. This is a crisis that has been going on now for a long time. And there are people who really do need that higher level of care. And hopefully we can use this first front door to help people access that.
All right, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, how the city is addressing neighborhood concerns surrounding these new shelters. If you haven't been to the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry yet this summer, now is the time, because you can see over 50 large-scale Jurassic World dinosaurs, props, and scenes made from over 6 million Lego bricks. Jurassic World by Brickman is open only until September 1st, and having gone myself, I can attest to the meticulous recreations. Plus, the exhibition gives Lego and Jurassic World fans opportunities to put their creativity and engineering skills to the test. There's building activities like creating new dinosaurs, habitats, and even building an escape vehicle to get away from a T-Rex. Hurry to see this can't-miss exhibit before it closes on September 1st. Learn more at omsi.edu. That's omsi.edu. I am so excited to tell you about the North Coast Express. That's the new seasonal transit option connecting Portland to the most iconic destinations on the Oregon North Coast. On top of just getting to sit back and relax since you're not driving, all buses include free Wi-Fi and charging ports, onboard restrooms, panoramic windows and reclining seats, wheelchair-accessible lifts, and you can grab the bus from the Sunset Transit Center Fridays through Sunday through the end of August. There's flexible return day ticketing, which lets you choose between a spontaneous day trip or a longer coastal stay. For more information like tickets, schedules, and the full route, go to visittheoregoncoast.com/express. That's visittheoregoncoast.com/express. If you're a home DIYer like me, you might have a few leftover paint cans gathering dust in your basement. Or maybe your house already came with a bunch of them like mine did. So I'm happy to share that Paint Care makes recycling your leftover paint, stain, and varnish simple and easy with convenient drop-off locations as close as your local hardware store. Paint Care has 3 simple rules for painting smarter. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up leftover paint. And 3, 3, recycle the rest. If you visit paintcare.org/3simplerules, you'll find tips on how to do all 3. Buying the right amount of paint for your project, exploring DIY ideas for how to use up leftover paint, and also just look up the nearest drop-off site in your neighborhood. Paint Care is all about keeping it simple for Oregonians. We've heard a lot of backlash about another shelter that's set to open soon, about a mile north in the Pearl. There was a community meeting recently where hundreds of residents spoke out. And one complaint from these people was that there hasn't been enough opportunity for neighborhoods to give feedback before the shelters are installed. But like, how are you working with that community that's been so vocal against their shelter?
One of the things we're hearing the most frequently is that people are concerned about what happens during the daytime.
Yeah.
So we're moving fast to open Portland's first outdoor day service that will be less than a mile from that shelter and will allow folks to be in a safe space to stabilize and access services. And so that's kind of first and foremost. We'll be working on transportation to ensure folks who are leaving the shelter have the transportation they need to get to the day center and can connect to the services there at the day center. But it's also, because it's a large outdoor space, it's going to provide people the opportunity to be without harassment, to be in a place where they can stabilize, they can rest, they can join in community, they can have quiet time, they can take a shower, they can talk to social workers if that's their interest. So that's, I think, a big thing that we're hearing. We're hearing various concerns about potential safety risk in the area. So we're looking at how can we improve the lighting? How can we ensure that our outreach workers have a good understanding of that particular neighborhood and where there might be problem spots so they can give additional attention to those areas and connect with individuals who may be lingering after the shelter closes in the morning. We really want to earn the trust of the neighbors in the Pearl and around every single shelter that is opening across the city. And we really are casting a wide net across all 4 districts of the city of Portland to open new shelter.
Right. Has anything come out, though, from these conversations with these neighbors in the Pearl that have changed what you are doing, though? Like your approach, where you're just like, oh, we didn't think about this, or like we thought about this, but we didn't realize how important this piece was.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the dialogue has helped to influence our timeline. It's helped to influence our plans to start smaller and kind of ramp up in time for the winter in terms of the capacity. And that's based both on the dialogue and our own lesson learned. We know that if we start small, we can set a culture and we can set expectations for individuals coming into the shelter in terms of how they behave in the neighborhood. We want to be good neighbors, and we want the participants in the shelter to get a good night's sleep, but also to build a positive neighborhood relationship. And I think this team that's standing up shelter right now is a very iterative team. We take feedback seriously. We incorporate it into our plans. We adapt and adjust. We know that moving fast means we're going to make some mistakes, and that's part of this work. And we're going to continue to learn from that and improve based on the learning that comes from making mistakes.
Yeah. Have you guys considered some sort of like work program? Because, a lot of people, having a job is really helpful to kind of have purpose, when so many things are going wrong. And I know that it's so hard for people who've already hit that cycle of homelessness to hold down a job because you need an address, you need showers, you need so much. And again, you're starved to sleep, you're seeking community, there's so much. But just thinking about you saying, creating this culture, I think a lot of the positives of a community is that you're accountable, you're held accountable, right? If the people from the shelter felt accountable to that community in a sense, it might create a better relationship. I think it would make them feel like, oh, I belong here. I'm doing something good. And then the neighbors would be like, oh, well, they're doing something's happening here,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just an idea here. I'm sure you guys have thought about it because, why wouldn't you? But, that might actually work with some of, the day shelter specifically, because you're just like, well, what are they going to do all day?
Yeah, workforce programs are wonderful. And there's a number of organizations in our community that are really helping folks to connect to those work opportunities. I mean, Ground Score, comes to mind, Clean Start comes to mind, that are really working with folks. And the city partners with these organizations as well in some of this work to kind of clean up our city and ensure that we're focused on beautifying those spaces around shelter, but also throughout the city.
Yeah, for sure. So we've had a number of conversations about the homeless crisis in the city recently, and it seems like we have these two big sides. And one side is very critical of short-term shelters, saying that the true solution, the only thing that money should be going into, is getting people into permanent housing. People know them as the housing first mentality, right? So they're saying basically shelters, waste of money, get people into permanent housing. Then there's the service providers that we talk to, people who are actually working with the homeless community. And they're just like, you can't just, that's hard to do just permanent housing straight off the bat. A lot of people aren't going to stay in permanent housing. Temporary shelters are an essential stepping stone to kind of triage them into their needs. So what would you say to those that are really focused on housing first? Because it does sound really good. Like, it sounds like a great idea. And according to them, their data shows that that is the most effective way of housing people.
We're deep in this crisis. We have a number of people who have been living chronically homeless for a long period of time. And we have been missing that ability to provide immediate life-saving care. The goal is always a permanent home for everyone, and it always will be. And it's our hope that by addressing that life-saving overnight care, we can really help people move towards permanent housing. And the permanent supportive housing that's being promoted as part of a housing first model is something we need to invest in. I truly believe that as a city. And we know that we also need to meet people where they're at and support folks with immediate needs so that they can begin to see that pathway out of homelessness and connect to these other services. We also know it's going to take a long time to provide the level of service that's required in a permanent housing scenario. And we need to keep working on that. And simultaneously, we need to ensure that we're getting people off the streets. Individuals living on the street are most likely to be the victims of crime. We know that. There's a much higher rate of traffic pedestrian fatalities among people experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
We know that. There are things we can do right now that are going to actually save lives. And we need to do that. And we need to invest in long-term solutions as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What is the roadmap to get from where we are today, which is the beginnings of opening these overnight shelters, to actually reaching the goal of ending homelessness in Portland? Like, what are the actual steps involved? What's the timeline?
Wish I had a perfect answer
I know, you're
for
like,
you.
I live.
Love that question. It's such an important question. And I wish I had that answer.
Yeah.
But we do need to build more housing. We do need to create more deeply affordable housing options. And we need to invest heavily in our recovery and residential recovery services across the whole state of Oregon. I'll say our city, yes, but actually it's a much larger problem and challenge ahead of us. And I think we need to activate the vacancies now that we have within our housing system. And there's a housing team that's working here at the city in collaboration with the county, with Metro, to really look at how do we activate the housing that we have and create those more deeply affordable options for people who would be coming out of homelessness.
So what I'm hearing is the mayor is like, the end of this year, end unsheltered homelessness. But homelessness, ? Is what I'm hearing.
There's a lot more work to be done across all jurisdictions, and that work is happening.
And know that I do feel silly asking that question, but it's a question everyone has. Because when you state something as bold as I'm ending unsheltered homelessness, then you're just like, well, then what? Are we fixing capitalism? Like, what are we doing? Like, how is Portland going to rise above all of the social ills that America has created? So I'm excited that you guys are we're figuring this out, but I wondered if there was more that you're just like, well, now that we're thinking about unsheltered homelessness, now we're connecting the dots and we're just like, well, this is going to happen. Because, it would be nice is all. It would be nice.
Yeah, permanent solutions are definitely where we want to get to. And I agree with you. We need to be working on those things. And yes, it would be nice. Permanent housing is always the goal. And I do think we need to get creative.
Yeah. Have you had any creative solutions or ideas or things that you guys are following through? That's something that we could hang a hat on, a hat of hope, Brandy?
Yeah, I sit on Mayor Wilson's housing strike team in addition to the shelter work. And within the housing strike team, we are really thinking about how do we activate underutilized housing in our community. The truth is there are vacancies that are not being utilized, and those vacancies exist for a number of reasons. So focusing on trying to activate now the housing that we have within our community, feels like a productive first step.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our governor, our mayor continue to work on options to increase the development of affordable housing.
Yeah.
But that's going to take some time. So the immediate solutions, it feels good to be talking about that and thinking about that. Say in our 24/7 shelters, Urban Alchemy has been working on vocational development programs, and we've seen some success coming out of those vocational development programs with people being able to secure out of shelter living wage jobs.
That's awesome.
And that's a huge step on the pathway to stability. The creation of recovery spaces within existing low barrier shelters is helping people to connect to recovery services and a recovery community that is also creating that sense of stability that's going to be helpful on that pathway to stable housing. So there's a lot of really interesting, creative, and effective strategies within the system that are happening now, and our challenge is to learn to scale those.
Well, thanks again, Brandy, for taking the time to talk to us. It's nice to hear that the city is working so hard on trying to find solutions. And I really do see this as like, what are we all going to do to figure this out? So, if there's ever a way to activate our listeners, to activate volunteers, people around us, hit us up.
I appreciate that. And there are always ways to activate support. This work is going to require all of us.
And now for some events happening this week. Every Thursday on the show, we like to bring you a few recommendations to help you plan your weekend. And here's what we got. Tonight, CityCast Portland is presenting the Keep Portland Weird Night with the Portland Pickles in Lents Park's Walker Stadium. I'm throwing out the first pitch at 7 p.m. on top of some amazing collegiate-level baseball. The Dandy Warhols and a ton of other special guests will be in attendance. It should be a really fun summer night. It's also First Thursday, so if baseball isn't your thing, head downtown for free admission at the Portland Art Museum until 7 p.m. The Pearl District is also holding its massive First Thursday street gallery, where all the galleries are also usually open, and it's the easiest way to get some free cheese and wine while scoping out the new installations. And just a reminder that the White Lotus Summer Market is still happening this weekend and going on every weekend through the end of August. It's held at the Shunfat Supermarket on Southeast 82nd from 2 to 10 p.m. And it's your go-to spot for discovering new local Asian businesses and creative makers. Definitely go hungry though. And these are just a few things happening in the next few days. For even more local events and news, sign up for our daily newsletter, Hey Portland, or check out our website, portland.citycast.fm/events. We'll throw a link to all this in the show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.